We continue now at the top of Daf Chaf Beis Amud Aleph and Meseches Menachos. This is Menachos Daf 22a. On the previous summit, the Gemara brought a Mishnah in Meseches Shkolim, which says that among the stipulations of the court is that the melach, the salt that's provided to the Kohanim, is provided to them by the Beis HaMikdash from the communal funds. And Shmuel said on that we're talking about likarbonim. The salt is given over to the Kohanim by a stipulation of the court for their karbonos. And the Gemara initially thought that meant literally for the karbonos, the salting of their karbonos when they're offering the karbonos. Again, that salt, it comes from the treasury of the Beis HaMikdash. It comes from the communal funds. And the Gemara asked on that, how can we possibly think that's what Shmuel meant? But even a Yisrael who brings a carbon, he gets the melach, he gets the salt from the treasury of the Beis HaMikdash, from the communal funds. And that doesn't even require a stipulation of the court. So why would the Kohanim need a stipulation of the court? That cannot possibly be what Shmuel meant. And so the Gemara answered that initial understanding of Shmuel is needed according to Ben Bukhri, because Ben Bukhri holds that the Kohanim are not obligated to give the half shekel, that yearly half shekel that goes into the treasury of the Beis HaMikdash. And so therefore, according to that opinion, one might have thought, Ki zachi lehu rachmana li Yisrael, maybe it's only to a Yisrael that the Torah says that the salt comes from the Beis HaMikdash treasury, De'is lehu lishka, because they have a lishka, meaning to say they have a share in that chamber. As Rashi explains, Ki zachi l'rachmana lishka, when did the Torah say that they get that chamber, limloach karbana mishal hekdesh, that they can salt their karbanos from hekdesh, from the treasury of the Beis HaMikdash? Li Yisraelu dezachi lehu, maybe that's only for Yisrael. Mishum de'is lehu lishka, they have lishka. Kilomar, what that means to say is shehem nosnu ashkalim belishka, they themselves, they put the shkalim into the chamber, shemehen nikna hamelach, and it's from that chamber, from those shkalim, that the salt is purchased. Aval kohanim shein chayav and lishkol, but kohanim, they don't even need to give the shekel, so maybe they wouldn't get lahachi itzrich tana. That's why the condition of the court is needed to give that to the kohanim. Again, that's what the Gemara means when it says li Yisrael de'islu lishka, but the kohanim deleslu lishka, but for the kohanim who don't have lishka, lo zachilu rachmana, so the Torah does not give them that zechus. And so kamash malon, that's what it's teaching us, that again through that stipulation of the court, the kohanim get that zechus, and that's why that was the initial understanding of Shmuel. And again, on the previous summit, the Gemara eventually concluded that actually what Shmuel meant was likarbonim, for the eating when they're partaking of their carbon, that's when they get the salt from the treasury of the Beis HaMikdash. But for the eating of chulin, that they cannot use the salt from the treasury that's provided from the funds of the treasury of the Beis HaMikdash. And the Gemara continues, Ve'etzim, now when it comes to the wood, the pshita le'latan, it was obvious to the Tana earlier, the Mishel Tzibor, that comes from the communal funds. So Minolan, from where do we know that? And the Gemara says, the Tanya, as we learned in the following Brisa, Yachol ha'omer harei olai ola, one might think that if somebody says it's upon me to bring an ola, so Yavi eitzim mitoch beiso, he has to bring the wood from his house, Kederach shemevi nesachim mitoch beiso, just like he brings the libations from his house, one might think that. Talmud Lomer, the pasuk says, Al ha'eitzim asher al ha'esh asher al ha'mizbeach, it talks about the wood and it talks about the mizbeach, and we learn from that pasuk as follows, Ma mizbeach mishel tzibor, just like the mizbeach, that comes from the community, Af eitzim ve'esh, so to the wood and the fire, mishel tzibor, that comes from the community. Divrei Rabbi Elazar bar Rabbi Shimon, these are the words of Rabbi Elazar bar Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua Omer, Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua says, Ma mizbeach shelo nishtamish bo hedyot, just like a mizbeach, it was never used, it's brand new, it was never used by a regular person. Af eitzim ve'esh, so to the wood and the fire, shelo nishtamish ben hedyot, it has to have never been previously used by a regular individual. And the Gemara says, Mai beinayu, what's the difference between the two Tanoim, between Rabbi Elazar bar Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua? And the Gemara says, Ika beinayu chadati, the whole difference between them is whether it has to be new or not. Again, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua, it has to be new. That's the whole idea, shalom nishtamish bo hedyot. But Rabbi Elazar bar Rabbi Shimon, he doesn't have that requirement. He only has the requirement of mishel tzibor. And the Gemara continues, Va'atike lo, is it really true that if it's older wood, it is no good? Va'aksib, but it's written in the pasuk, this is a pasuk in Sefer Shmuel, Vayomar Arvana el David, Arvana said to David, Yikach v'yal Adoni hamelech hatov be'enov, let the king take what is good in his eyes, Re'ei habakar la'olav hamorigim, uchlei habakar la'etzim, see the oxen for carbanola, and the morigim, which are the threshing tools, and the chlei habakar, which refer to the equipment for the oxen. Lo eitzim, those will be for the wood. And so clearly, this is wood that has already been used. It's not new. And the Gemara continues, Hachanami b'charati. Here also it's actually talking about new. It was never actually used, and therefore it is in the category of lo nishtamish b'en hediot. And the Gemara continues, my morigim, what exactly is morigim? Amar Ula says, mita shel tarbul, it's mita shel tarbul. My mita shel tarbul, what is mita shel tarbul? Amar Rav Yehuda says, iza de korkasa de dashu badashtoi. It is a serrated board that's used for threshing. Amar Rav Yosef says, Ma'ikra, what pasuk indicates this? This is a pasuk in Yeshayahu. The pasuk says, Hinei samtich lemorag choretz chadash bal pipios tadosh harim. The pasuk uses the word morag, and it refers to the fact that it has sharp teeth to thresh mountains. And Rashi explains, Iza Eiz Shel Barzel Nosn Olav Lahachbido seems to be shaped like a goat, and it's made out of metal. It's placed upon it to weigh down upon it. Iza de Kurkasa Neser Gadol Mola Yasedos. Again, it's full of these pegs, and it's serrated. The Daisha Disha, it's used for threshing. Shenosn Oso Alatvu, it's placed upon the grain. V'koshen Bo Shavarim, and it's tied to the oxen. Umoshcheno, so they pull it. V'nidoshas Hatvua, and then the crop is threshed in that manner. Ma'ikra, what pasuk indicates Morigim Letzorech Disha, that Morigim are used for threshing. D'chsiv morag u'chsiv tadush. Again, it says in the pasuk morag, and it says tadush, which means threshing. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Nesarev kumtza bekometz chaverta. If the kometz gets mixed up with the kometz of another mincha, b'minchas kohanim, or with the minchas kohanim, the mincha of kohanim is totally burned, or b'minchas kohen Mashiach, the mincha of the kohen gadol, b'minchas nesachim, or the minchas nesachim, which is mincha, which accompanies an animal carbon together with libations. All of these are all entirely burned on the mizbeach, so kshera, that is kosher. And the idea is that since the kometz is burned on the Mizbeach and all of these types of carbon mincha are burned on the Mizbeach, so therefore they can all be burned together, even though they were mixed together. And the Mishnah continues, Rabbi Yehuda says, B'minchas kohen Mashiach, if it gets mixed up with a mincha of a kohen gadol, or b'minchas nesachim, or the minchas nesachim, psula, so then it's disqualified. Shazubli lasa ava, because this one has a thick mixture, v'zubli lasa rak, and the other one's a thinner mixture, v'hein bolo zumizu, and they absorb from one another, and therefore they are disqualified. Rashi explains, "B'minchas kohanim ksheira sharei kulo kalo kamoso." Minchas kohanim, again, it's also entirely burned, just like the kometz. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Im nesarif hakometz, if a kometz gets mixed up, a minchas nesachim with a minchas nesachim or minchas kohen Mashiach, or the mincha of the kohen gadol, psula, then it's disqualified. Lefisha kometz the minchas nidvas Yisrael, the kometz of a mincha that's just donated by Yisrael, bli laso ava, that has a thick kind of mixture. Lug li isar, and there's a lug of oil for every isar in a flour. Or minchas kohen Mashiach or minchas nesachim. But the mincha the kohen gadol, the minchas nesachim, bli lasan raka, that's a thinner mixture. Shlosha lugin lisar, and you have 3 lug of oil for every isar in a flour. T'chsib minchas nesachim bolol b'revias ayin shemen v'yolef chavisin mina shlosha lugin lisar, and b'perakat chelas, by the minchas nesachim, that's written right in the pasuk, and then chavisin, which is the mincha of the kohen gadol, that's learned from there. V'hein bolo zumizu, and Rabbi Yehuda said that they absorb from one another. Hakometz bolei ami minchas nesachim, the kometz absorbs from the minchas nesachim. Riba sham, that's too much oil. Or minchas nesachim nami psul, and the minchas nesachim is also disqualified. The havalei chiser shamna, that's too little oil. V'haida katani psula v'lo katani psulas. Now the reason the Mishnah says psula in the singular and not psulos in the plural, misham dekula masnisin belishna dechada mincha ayri. That's just because the Mishnah is addressing one mincha. V'reisha nami hachitana, that's in the reisha as well. Nesariv kumtza bekometz chaverta ksheir. It says if the kometz is mixed up with the kometz of another mincha, it is kosher. V'havalei lemisnik ksheros. It could have said ksheros, but it's just focusing on that one mincha. And the Gemara says, Tanan Hassam, we learned in a Mishnah over there, this is a Mishnah Meseches Zvachim, Dam shenesari b'mayim, blood gets mixed with water. Im yesh bo maris dam, if it still looks like blood kosher, then it is kosher. Nesari b'yayin, let's say it gets mixed with wine, ro'no so ki'ilu humayim, we have to view the wine as if it is water, and see again if the blood would be visible or not had it been water. Nesari b'dam behemo, b'dam chaya, if it gets mixed up with the blood of a behemo, a domesticated animal, or dam chaya, the blood of a wild animal, ro'no so ki'ilu humayim, again we view it as if it is water. Rabbi Yehuda says, Ein dam mevatel dam, blood doesn't nullify other blood. Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Ushneya mikra echad darshu, they both darsh in one pasuk, v'lokach midam hapor midam hasor, it says he takes from the blood of the bull and the blood of the he-goat, hadavar yadua, it's known, shedamo shel par meruba midamo shel sar, that the amount of blood of the bull is more than the blood of the goat. Rabbanan Savri, and the Rabbanan hold, and Rashi explains, dam de kodshim kosher lizrika, again we're talking here about blood blood of kachim, of karbanos, it is kosher for zrika as long as it has the maris dam, it looks like blood. Nesare beyayin shuedem, if it gets mixed with wine which is red, rono so ki'ilu mayim, we view it as if it was water. Vim haya mayim vaya maris hadam nikr, had it been water and the blood would still be visible, beinehem, among them, then kosher, it's kosher. Bedama habehema, let's say it gets mixed with the blood of a behema, shal chulin, meaning it's not a carbon, it's just the blood of an animal that is not hektish. Rono so as shal chulin, then we view the chulin again the same, we view it as if it is water, to see again if it would have been enough, had it been water, that the blood of the kachim would not be visible. But Rabbi Yehuda says, Ein dam mevatel dam v'kosher, blood never nullifies blood and it's kosher. And then the Gemara said, Hadavar Yadua, that they both darshan the same pasuk, and the pasuk talks about the dam hapar and the dam hasar, and it's known that the dam hapar is more than the dam hasar, but afilu hachi, nevertheless, kari leakati nami dam sar, it's still called the blood of the he-goat. Ve'afal pisha nesaribo dam hapar, even though it's mixed into it, the dam hapar, which is maruba, which is more, kedam rinan b'meseches yuma, ira dam hapar lesoch dam hasar, like it says in Meseches yuma, he would pour the dam hapar, the blood of the bull, into the blood of the sar, of the he-goat, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chaf Beis Amid Beis.